component of modern agriculture. But of course, there is the flip side, that with this great power comes great responsibility in terms of utilization and balance. How then do we balance the need to protect our crops with the imperative to ensure that the safety of our environment, our farmers and our consumers is maintained? That's a discussion we have here today. And with us in studio, I'll start off on my near left, Okizegere Ojepat, the CEO of the Fresh Produce Consortium of Kenya. He's, of course, a leading voice in the horticultural industry and, of course, speaks a lot to the challenges and opportunities that go with protecting from fresh produce from farm to fork, in fact, to the market, and ensuring that the food remains safe and healthy for consumers. On my extreme left, also very honored to have with us Professor Vasey Mwaja. He is from the Kenya National Academy of Sciences. Of course, Professor Mwaja brings with him a wealth of knowledge in the scientific and policy dimensions of crop protection, and he's here to offer us a broader perspective on just how Kenya can balance the use of pesticides with the need to protect biodiversity and the environment. Well, having laid that foundation, you can clearly see that this is a discussion that promises, gentlemen, to be very informative and insightful. Of course, this discussion is important because policymakers and other stakeholders who are concerned about the food security situation here in Kenya, of course, will want to get insights into that. Let's start off then. I think a good place to start, Prof, and to rope you in first is to define what we mean when we say crop protection. And of course, the sort of significance this has for things like maintaining crop yields, ensuring productivity and that sort of thing. Please start us off.
Thank you very much. Crop protection is a term we use when we talk about protection, is to make sure that for the farmers to get maximum benefits of their activities, to make sure you can protect your crops from pest, diseases and weeds, because these are two aspects. Knowing that if you don't intervene in time, you lose up to 50% of your production, which is a big loss to the farmer. However, when we talk about crop protection, we see use of crop protection technologies, really, because the aspect of people think crop protection is using chemicals or pesticides. That's not reality. Crop protection is more than that.
Yes.
So there's a broad aspect. However, due to the needs of trying to intervene in time, sometimes you end up looking for short-term ways to deal with those pests and diseases. So this is a key component in agriculture. It's not only for Kenya, but when you look at the global context, 95% of production, we call it conventional production, uses those tools called crop protection technologies for agricultural production.
And Prof, then this is also something that changes as the science improves and as we come to learn lessons based on the impact and that sort of thing. Talk to us briefly about the different methods that have been applied over the years, the impacts and the changes we've seen to this technology today, to the point where we're saying that in the past we used to see that, for example, as Africans, we have had our own methods. We've seen Western methods. We keep hearing about new technologies.
Yeah, the new technologies goes with changes. As when you look at the science, it's evolving. Science is not static. So techniques change. One of the best ways you remember, in the 70s and the early 80s, people used to use large quantities of products to control pests. Today, they are using very little, but does the same thing. This is because if you look at the products, they are produced on the basis of technology, and the technology is becoming more efficient, which means that we can produce pest control products which can be used on a very small scale. Like when we talk about nanotechnology today, we are using unmanned applicators, using drones. Drones will not carry 5 liters. They use chemicals to be delivered through kind of technology. So these changes is on the basis of need to be. And as a country, we cannot bury our hands under this sand, because these changes will come and haunt us. And remember, technology is not only the pesticides or the crop protection products. We are thinking about the use of delivery of the same through the seed, because the seed is part of the areas where either you can control the diseases early by planting the right seed at the right time. We also look at the aspects of what application you're doing irrigation, and you also need to know that some of the pests are in the soil. So you have to have diversified approaches to intervene in the production cycle. So this is why I'm saying that the changes are there, and they are going to continue to be there. So we must be alert, and we must be proactive in that direction.
Thank you very much, Prof. OJ, I want to bring you in at this point. And from the point of view that as a person who literally has to work with the industry and has seen these methods evolve over time, talk to us about the lessons learned. So where, of course, this conversation started, why we are even having it in the first place, and why it's important.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I agree. We're in agriculture space.
Yes.
And I was telling Prof when we were coming that, agriculture is not going to stop as long as there's childbirth.
Yes.
People must eat. Two, that Kenya in particular is in a very good place in terms of the geographical location.
Yes.
We are in the tropics, and therefore the existence of pests in this part of the world is not a choice. It is a weather that is conducive for our production
and also for pests.
And for pests. Just like we have tourists coming around here, and I keep telling people, God was so gracious to put Kenya around the equator, and the equator then serves us very well.
Yes.
We enjoy 12 hours of day and 12 hours of darkness, and we enjoy generally very moderate climatic conditions and generally stable temperatures that are very conducive for agriculture.
And sorry to interrupt you, because most people might not understand when you say moderate. The fact that we don't see that seesaw of 0 to 30.
Because we don't see we don't experience what we call the extreme weather.
The
seasons where we have summer and we have winters. We are generally at an average of between 20. I think the lowest we have experienced is this time, where it has been 10. A little bit. But we are normally between 20 to 30, which is very accommodative, very appropriate for very many crops. And that's why I keep insisting that Kenya is in a position where we can produce 365 days of the year, and that we are in a very unique situation as a country, and perhaps that's what has made us in the horticulture industry particularly to be able to thrive over years. Now, when it comes to this crop protection debate and discussions, I think it has been taken out of context based on the emotions other than being very projective.
And the
interest. I remember a few years ago we had this conversation of saying, can we just check out in the marketplace the safety of our products, not the pesticides in our products. The safety of our products that entails so many things besides just looking at the pesticides. So when it comes to crop protection, we say in our farming that we use plant protection products to just ensure that you manage an economical level that suppresses and keeps the pests at an economic level where you actually can continue and coexist. Now, what we've seen over time is that the crop protection products have made us, have ensured that we have our crops throughout the year. They have ensured that we remain in our export business. They have ensured that we have put traceability systems in place. Crop protection products are the reason why we are actually able to eat every day. In other extremes, and I keep telling people, recently we experienced locust in this republic. If it were not for crop protection, we will have been swept properly and will have gone hungry and will have been beggars, because other jurisdictions that of course have brought some conversation about the negativity on crop protection do not experience the temperatures we experience. And therefore locust will never survive in their regions. They will not even arrive there. So for that reason, we're in a very unique place. And Prof and the other scientists have done so much in ensuring that we have a crop. And I can say this, Wakaba, I always tell people, as it is with the pharmaceuticals, where we are asking ourselves to follow certain conditions, instructions of use of pharmaceuticals. Same way here, if we follow the instructions as guided in the crop protection labels, we will be in a very good place, because nobody ever stops Wakaba from taking pharmaceuticals. But Wakaba takes pharmaceutical, one, only on need basis, and two, as prescribed.
Under instruction of a
on our side here, we are saying nobody has told you to spray. But we spray because we have done scouting. We have checked the level, the threshold that we have allows us to control the pests at an economic level. And then once we are done with that crop, we don't bother to spray again. After certain times, we don't even get there.
So in fact,
what I'm saying here is crop protection products have a place on the face of the earth, particularly.
So our challenge then is simple, that we don't necessarily use them under the instructions of a professional, like we would take medicine and then follow those instructions.
What we are doing in this country is assuming we know. And we have allowed, for lack of a better term, quacks to be advisors of plant protection products. We have gone to school and studied, and there are people who have gone out there and done what they have done. Please allow experts to advise you and take instructions based on the advice. And if you do not have an advisor, I have always said we are open and available to offer that advice, so that we do not condemn and blame the plant protection products, but we blame ourselves for not seeking the necessary knowledge that is required for us to administer. But from where we sit, plant crop protection products in this country have a place, and that is why we are we're able to produce food and we're able to feed people, even though, as we speak, we are still not food secure as a country.
So the conversation around the extension services is one for another day, but definitely a big part of this conversation. I want to go to Prof.
Perhaps before Prof comes in, I was so happy when I saw a clip earlier. That gentleman called Kimeu in Makueni is my student. A few years ago, we went down there and established private service provision. And we started in Makueni with the mangoes. And I remember Kimeu with a small team. We even encouraged them to become a business. They are now service providers with a business. They can come to your farm, offer a professional service. Today, when everybody is celebrating Makueni, I keep going back and talking to Anthony Kimeu and telling them, do you remember the conversation in 2012, 2013, when we were talking about it? It looks like a nightmare. Today, we're excited that service provision has been devolved and it's now in the hands of both the private sector and the public sector to offer the much needed support. And that is what we should be talking about here. How do we get that knowledge to the grower through either private submission or public?
Peter, I need to make a clarification to the viewers. Crop protection products, I would say, are among the most highly researched type of products in the market. More than even pharmaceuticals, I can assure you that. Because the process of getting that product into the market takes many years, plus also it goes on 4 steps. From the time when you discover it, you go to look at toxicological aspects of that active ingredient. Then you go to look at the ecobiological aspects of that active ingredient. By the time you come in to looking at the efficacy and use of that product and the choice of the particular pests that you target. So in the real sense, a lot of work has done. In particular, I like looking at the toxicological aspect, because most of the reports that you find, people blame those crop protection products on is poisoning somebody. But I can assure the users and the people listening to us this afternoon, these products are well researched. That's one. Number 2, there's also another misconception that Kenya has got pesticides everywhere. We use so little. I can give you a very good picture. Africa uses less than 3% of the total pesticide production global. We are nobody. We are barely squeaking on the surface. The highest in Africa is South Africa, followed by Egypt. We are very far down. Now, when you look at the global context, Chinese are in the tune of 1.something million tons of active ingredients. Americans come next. Canadians, French, they come way up there. Yet, I use the word yet, you don't hear the big stories we talk about.
What about, Prof? Because they keep talking to us, and I'm glad you talked about active ingredients. Because the thing you hear is that there are things which are banned in other jurisdictions that are present here and are wreaking havoc. So they say.
I say no. I say no, Peter, because I spent 20 years in that space. When I talk 20 years, it's 20 years of that space.
Yes.
Working through the process of looking at through how do you, if you look at the classification of pesticides, they come a long way. We come from carbamides. We got all those classes, and normally there's nothing produced there that is sitting here for you. Remember that. So whatever it is, most of these products are all based on specific active ingredients which are named different names in other places.
Yeah.
So that misconception, that's, you know, you find that people think products are coming that's been banned. The process of banning is not over a cup of tea. It's a global process. You can talk about restriction, restricted use, or the product might fall off the space because the technologies have changed. The users now, they have changed the ways of applying that particular products for specific pests. So that changes that. Does not mean the product is banned. It could be of no economic use at that moment. As new products come into the market changes.
Yes, they will displace old ones out of that.
They'll move out, but it's a very, remember, these products are produced because of the conventions. Don't forget, we have the Rotterdam Convention.
Yeah.
We have all these conventions which look at how do the products move from one space to the other. So let's remove that from there. Number two is confusion between what you read from, I would call it from people talking about something and what is real. What is real is the reality.
Yes.
The reality is that I believe we have this system in place to protect the users in Kenya and also to protect also the industry and the people at large and the economic production. Should we tomorrow wake up? Some countries have tried that massive banning of usage. Agriculture collapses overnight. I can tell you that if tomorrow we woke up and see we ban products in this country, there'll be no agriculture.
Yes.
And sometimes emotions overtake reality. And for us, as the Kenya National Academy of Sciences, we call ourselves, we come in to give a balanced and a neutral position, science-based solutions.
Yes.
We look at it. We look at it through a one-on-one. We sit down as a team of experts, debate the whole process until we are sure we go through to get information from either the manufacturers or the industry, the researchers, global, and we come up with what we call a science-based decision, which does not necessarily make everybody happy. And one of those ones is what I'm saying.
Yes.
We can tell you something you don't want to hear, but that's a reality.
So how come then these people are not turning to scientists for answers? They seem to listen to politicians more.
Not even turning. The reasons are the politicians also listen to them. I'm going to change this. I have no regrets putting that statement. Because they're looking for an access. Yeah. Remember, what is their interest? The question I always ask, if I come today, what is your interest in trying to restrict the usage? You want Kenyans to remain being out there, they cannot produce enough for their people. If they cannot, then you're building a market for somebody else elsewhere. Who are they agents for? So for us being Kenyans, and being Kenyans, we have the capacity and capability to look at some of these details and come up with a well-researched and well-thought answer, including advising our parliamentarians. We need to do that. That's our responsibility.
Yes. So, OJ, 5 years ago, when we had this conversation first, Prof, it was actually because of a story that ran that had shown that someone had been growing veggies in sewage somewhere. And they had then been able to deliver this to a supermarket. And because they were looking very good, they, of course, had been consumed. And then one day someone checked and he said that on live TV. So the question then was, how come there weren't any mechanisms to test these and check them out in the market? And of course, discover whether this is right for consumption or not. And then it turned out that these mechanisms actually did exist. But the demand for testing, the metrology aspect of quality determination was almost non-existent because our market did not demand it. People were getting tests for crops that were for products that were being exported and diverting those that failed into the local market, but the local market was not testing. Have we moved from there, OJ?
Yeah, let me thanks, Wakaba. Thanks for reminding us where we started from. So when I see some confusion in the market, sometimes I ask people, I wish people post and asked where are we coming from, where are we, and where are we headed. And I want to start by saying that, first of all, agriculture is not an event.
Yes.
And it also has to be remembered that what you asked, Prof, about banned pesticides and other jurisdictions. Number one, why will they have those pesticides there when their climatic conditions do not allow that pest to exist? If there's no pest, it's like mosquitoes. There are places in this world mosquitoes cannot. So I do not export a mosquito repellent because what are we repelling?
True.
So we are in a situation where some products are in Kenya, are in this part of the world because of our conditions. If we did not have those pests here, there would be no product. Number two, I like what Prof has said. I hear people say banned. Banned by who? Number two, number three, I have traveled a bit. And there's a product, for example, that was considered a no access in Kenya. And now the markets are demanding that we fumigate our products using the same molecules.
Really?
Yeah. For example, we are working with Australia. It's not a secret. Australians are saying fumigate our products with methyl bromide. The EU are saying they do not even want to imagine that we know methyl bromide. But we must respect their jurisdiction. When we go to India, India is telling us fumigate our pulses before you send them to us. I can tell you today, if you go to America, the kind of fumigation, depending on where we are going, is so massive. And as Prof says, the entire Africa uses 3% of the pesticides in the world. But I dare say here, are you telling me that the Republic of Kenya is clear and happy to import poison to kill her own citizens? And that we are authorizing molecules to come to this country to kill our own citizens? Because the emotions around it is that pesticides are causing cancer. Go to the cancer center, Wakaba today, and tell me how many deaths have been reported that have been associated with cancer. Tell me today. Go to the cancer center. It's open at Kenyatta National Hospital.
That are linked to
pesticides. That are linked to pesticides. You will realize that those cancers that are being spoken about are associated with so many other things. The other day I was in Peketoni, where there is no farming. And the people have cancer. So where did they get cancer from? Now, just to come back to what we said, the problem in this country is the Kenyans, the consumer, who has never demanded for anything. Though the testing facilities are there. I mean, we have spoken to groceries. And they will tell you, listen, we are willing to have all the tests done. But for who? Who is asking for it? Kenyans do not want to ask for accountability of the products they eat. On our side, we are very responsible. Wakaba, we have been here. We export more than 3,000 metric tons per day out of this country. And we test at random, and I keep telling people, sample them anywhere. The same farmers who are growing for export are growing for the domestic market. Are you telling me we are going to grow something good for the export market and kill ourselves? Now, what we are saying here as a country, we need to be, first of all, take a pause. Agree that we have a system. Agree that there are things being done. Currently, what is the county doing? What needs to be done? How do we support each one of us within the farming industry? And I want to say this, as you say, politicians are our biggest, weakest link. Politicians wake up in the morning, make a pronouncement. For example, pesticide cause cancer and cause unnecessary panic, and the burden of proof now goes to the other person. I wish those politicians could be asked to prove, put a burden of proof on the table that this pesticide, this cancer actually is attributed because of this pesticide. But now, to come back a step back, as we say, we have systems that have allowed us to measure. The biggest challenge we have, and I want to use IEBC as an example. When we are about to go to the election, IEBC comes in and says, listen, we have 6 ballot papers. There will be one for the president and the last one for the MCA. For a whole month, there will be a whole education about, including putting in a newspaper. Who has invested when it comes to agriculture. To tell people the do's and the don'ts, even just in the newspaper or in the press through yourselves. Who tells the grower about that? We are all busy waiting until it falls. But let me go back to the budgets. How much budgetary allocation, even if we talked about the extension services, do we allocate agriculture? We have protocols and meetings that have gone. Government, Kenya has signed off.
Yes.
We are supposed to be receiving at least a minimum of 10% of the national budget allocated to agriculture. How much do you get? Less than 3%. So, and you expect agriculture, and that's less than 3%, you expect agriculture. I can say on this show that a lot of agricultural activities today are funded by donors. If you have a donor, they have the interest. And sometimes, let's be candid enough, that we cannot relegate our responsibility to our neighbor to fix our domestic challenges. So what we need, in my opinion, number one, is allow agriculture to be run by agriculturists. We have enough professionals. Get the professionals to run agriculture. And let politicians make policy decisions that are informed by the science, and let them consult. We have a conversation going on here. Has anybody called OJ and said, come, let's sit on the table, what are the needs on your side? Nothing. We hear public participation. Prof, unless they have called you. No, even when it comes to the budgetary allocation, nothing. So let me give it this back to Professor by saying, friends, there are regulatory frameworks that have been put in place.
And lots of policy.
And there are policies that have been put in place. What we need to do is to say, how do we, for example, how do we strengthen PCPB? I can tell you there's a bill for PCPB bill that has been there, that has been supposed to have been amended and adjusted and worked on by Parliament. It has been hanging for 20 years.
Now. Almost
20 years.
20 years.
20 years.
Yes, when a bill goes to Parliament of Kenya, it's more than 20 years. 20 it has not been enacted. 20. Back and forth.
Back and forth. 2006. That was the last thing.
Back and forth. 2006. When is it today?
Yes, it's 18 years.
18 years.
That is a long time.
So, if we have a parliament here that wakes up in the morning and says we have pesticides, and they have a regulation they have not been able to fix for 20 years, who is the problem? Is it the regulator or is it the parliament? And remember, this parliament can go into, this government can have parliament pass a bill overnight because of certain things. When it comes to agriculture, it's 20 years. Do we want to go to that direction? So our weakest link today is our leadership, that either because agriculture does not put donations on the table, but I can tell this without fear of contradiction, we want to assure the world, particularly those who are buying from us, that we have done everything humanly possible. First, to use the recommended pesticides when it comes to plant protection. Two, we observe everything. That is why Kenya is still exporting. All the standards have been observed. And we are currently doing massive private sector education to our people and to our farmers. And that's why if you go to Eldoret, or you go to Nakuru, or go to Meru, or go to Loitoktok, the behaviors that were there 10 years ago and the current behavior are completely different. The current culture, the current grower, a farmer, is Wakaba, you and I, who have gone to school. And we know the importance of safety. But I dare say Kenyan consumers must take the first responsibility of asking what are they eating and putting something we call a traceability system in place. Backed by the governments of the day, as we do from the private sector. And on Saturday, I wrote and I said, food safety is everyone's responsibility. And food safety is not pesticide. Food safety is the entire system, including how you carry your food from the grocery. Ladies have bags. What is in that bag?
What else is in the bag?
What do you have in your car? I mean, the food could be okay, but by the time you put it in the truck and transport it, you will contaminate.
So, OJ, it is an entire ecosystem.
It's an entire ecosystem.
We have 2 minutes before we go to a break, Prof.
Peter, because I don't want that before we go for break. OJ actually mentioned carcinogenicity, cancer. I want to be very clear. A complaint that was raised about 2019, which made us look at some of these products is glyphosate-based herbicides.
And
I want to talk about it categorically. I want to talk about it today because I've dealt with this product for the last 30, 40 years myself personally, both from the research side, from the usage side. But I want to say something very small. One thing is there's a confusion between the product which has been perceived through people. Perception is different from reality.
Yes.
This product has been worked on, and we have looked at it in many ways. We've got standards from EPA, from European Food Safety, and I've looked about over 400 reports sitting out there talking about glyphosate and carcinogenicity.
Yes.
Nothing.
What about the stories we saw in, for example, in the United States about the guy who used it?
Yeah, but people have a confusion.
Yes.
I spent 20 years in the US. I worked in the US. I worked with glyphosate.
Yes.
I worked in a group that did glyphosate herbicide tolerant corn and soybean. Those people have reported, but there's no technical component. That's why the case is still going on.
Yes.
And
no, there's even a win last
there's
week.
There's no facts. Let me use the word.
Yes.
I worked for EPA.
Yes.
We used to call it, we do what special studies.
Yes.
Looking at products that have expired patents. Glyphosate was patented in 1975.
Yes.
How many years ago? 40 years plus. This product has been in use for 50 years.
Yes.
And there has never been
the linkages
between even with the test animals of glyphosate with cancer. And it's sometimes those studies I would wish them to...
Yes, it would have come out much earlier.
Yeah, it should have. And as Kenyans, let's not react. We reacted with GM crops, which were complete misnomer.
Yes.
We are now back in, we came in and talked a bit about it. And let's talk about other things, but glyphosate has no major implications.
I want to cut you off, Prof, because we need to go to that break. When we come back, I want us to talk about two things. Traceability, which he mentioned, and what that can do for us. And then, of course, the aspect that away from the chemicals, there's so much more we can do to ensure food safety.
Sure.
So that after the break, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.